We're just going to start now. That the video is not going to be right away, so we can just get started and do our introduction. We're going to do some prayer, do one of our inland songs for you. I'm going to do my introduction again. Like I said yesterday, in our modern world, we always seem to want to rush. But I think working with my elders, they help teach us that no, you have to do things right, and sometimes many times that means just slow down. So I think it's always good to, and I think that's one of the main reasons why in our way that we introduce ourselves, so that you know who's speaking, but also as I myself as a speaker, it reminds me of who I am and who I'm here to represent. So. Gunalchish Duane Gastant Aucoin Masiiti Achoni Klingit Yak Etu Yuxatini Gastant Kakashnut Yuchatu Asauk Klingit Genach Duane Aucoin Yuchatu Asauk Gleka Genach Klingit Hatsiti Yan Yedi Ayahat Achkla Janik, you do a sow klingechenach. Vicky Bob, you do a sow gleka chenach. Gunchish Achkla Has, Yak Etu Yuxatini. Gleka Yadi Ayahat Ach Ish, Cyril Aucoin, you do a sow gleka chenach. Mon père est français acadien. Gunchish ach ish has, yak etu yuxetini. Deshitan dachkant ayachat, ach chlich yech dugu yedu sagun, klinget genach. Charlie Bob, yedu sagun gleka genach. Gunchish ach chlich gu has, Yak yuxetini. Dechlisin kwan ayachat. Dakka kwan ayachatsu. My Tlingit name is Gastant and Kushnut. My white man name is Duane Aucoin. I'm Wolf. My clan is Yan Yedi. My mother is Vicky Bob. Janique is her Tlingit name. I'm a white man child. My father is Cyril Aucoin. He's Acadian from back east in Canada, French Acadian. I'm a Deshitan grandchild. My grandfather's name was Charlie Bob, Yesh Dugu, and he was actually born here in Juneau before he moved inland. My home is Dechlisin Kwan, Teslin, Yukon, which is part of Dakka, which is the inland Tlingit nation. And I thanked all of you for being here, and I thanked Aucoin for allowing us on their territory. Our people are originally from the Kwan, which is just the Taku Inlet. It's always good to look down there and see that's where our people come from before we moved inland into Canada. So it always feels like a homecoming, coming home here. And it's good to see you, my people. Like I said before, there's no Canadian Tlingit, there's no American Tlingit. We're all Tlingit, so we're all family. So it's good to see you here today. I'm going to invite one of our elders from Teslin, Emma Shorty. She's a Kokatan elder. If she can come up and lead us in the opening prayer. Sheesh.
Gulchish dikian kau ushkena huturiat. Haa Koosteeyi dat ayayu gachtusaat. Haa idi de shik ideen ach dikian kau glum kathal tin. Ideen wish in yeji nachturane. Haa khungi khantaya wutuat. Tlachat clean gunal shishui da haka. Haa Koosteeyi Gedeen jagachtu adwe jak de gul shish de kien kawa kheti saachi ho gul shish.
I'm going to sing a prayer song for you from our inland people. And being down here on the coast, it's so dark. Sometimes I have a hard time remembering where east is. So I think east is this way. Can people help me out? Am I right? Anybody have GPS? Okay, east that way. So, so we're going to pray to the four directions. If you all can stand up, and we're going to face east, and we're going to turn to the south, then to the west, and then to the north. So the song goes, Haish Achsati, the Kian Kau, our dear Heavenly Father up there. And then we turn to the south, Ishanawan, the Kian Kau, have pity on us, the Kian Kau. And we turn to the west, Haiti Dashi, the Kian Kau, come to help us. And then we turn to the north, Gunchish Ho Ho, the Kian Kau. Thank you very much for all that you've done for us. And we sing it 4 times each direction. So you can sing along if you want. Haish Achsati, Haish Achsati, the Kian Kau, the Kian Kau. Haish Achsati, Haish Achsati, the Kian Kau, the Kian Kau. Haish Achsati, Haish Achsati, the Kian Kau, the Kian Kau. Haish Achsati, Haish Achsati, the Kian Kau, the Kian Kau. Spirits of the south. Ishanawan, Ishanawan, the Kian Kau, the Kian Kau. 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 Spirits of the west. Haiti Dashi, Haiti Dashi, the Kian Kau, the Kian Kau. Haiti dashi, haiti dashi, daki an kau, daki an kau, haiti dashi, haiti dashi, daki an kau, daki an kau, haiti dashi, haiti dashi, daki an kau, daki an kau. Spirits of the North. Gunnaf chish ho ho, Gunnaf chish ho ho, daki an kau, daki an kau, Gunnaf chish ho ho, Gunnaf chish ho ho, daki an kau, daki an kau, Gunnaf chish ho ho, Gunnaf chish ho ho, daki an kau, daki an kau, Gunnaf chish ho ho, Gunnaf chish ho ho, daki an kau, daki an kau. We have our Kokatan Kashadahani Jisku, Jimmy Johnson, Achsani, my uncle, my auntie's husband. He's going to just do a little talk on Haa Koosteeyi.
I want to say a few words about Haa Koosteeyi. هنا حكم جودية الكايتي شوي هاكوغوزي جارة خطسختو يجونو كدين تلتكتا دي يك عديتي خوي خاقز يت نخير داي قدريات كيت أختو يكون عسليتين استقالتين عادي ياتكن ديين يجونوكا. It's a good feeling to come here to Juneau with all this, our Indian ways going. It's the way we want to be, to keep our Indian ways, our culture, our tradition. We keep our culture and tradition alive. Today, we together for our children tomorrow, so that these who, one of them one day will be up here, talking to what they have learned through the years that they've been here, and which I'm very proud of this man here, Duane. He's the one that's set up for us to be here today. And which it makes me feel good is to carry him around with one time. It's a small. Now I have to look at him. That's the way the life is. So we all know we have lots of things that we can understand throughout the years. For our cultures, we must understand each other and how we are. That's why the saying is, today we together for our children tomorrow. And by ending I said, Yichhoye ha diti, ye yagi, sekani yis, ha yitki yis. That's the way that works. Ach tu ye geesel te katat, jateh, hagachlatzin, ja, ade ha et jeetling git. Gedeen, hadaya shukachsaki, ade ha lied kohas Koosteeyi, has de idee achjan to at. Het je tegen han gati, has de Koosteeyi hagach to at. Je goed adese. De kadir, jenes outi. Ja. En als je komt to a die, het laat. Het je achjan to at egi. Arrestie de kat. Het gedeen han gati. Da zit lustkleen hadaya khushuske. Yishkanachte de wood. Ja, je kanachtu nik. Da zit hagede yati yishan han. De jan tuat. Adahayati. Het joos ach tu genig. Ach honierslingit ade achtje. Ja, de tie kunde jenet. De kadat jakode de kunde jen. Haa Koosteeyi ach tles jakode de Koosteeyi. Chukuraarese ade haase duacht are Haa Koosteeyi. Het lied kari hestinee. Ik ga toe aast de kadere. Hij het has de twaardige. Ik ging het aan. Ik heb de toe aast. Kaya je doen. Ik hou van schouwt. Jezus haar zoekt. Hij han gati. Hij jetke had het gaan. Hij het has gehad. Je goede. Het is de goede vriend of gastaregi. De schneider. Het gedeen. Han gati de kadere. When cheese the kajuan, yet 18 sache. When cheese. Thank you very much.
Cheese achsani. Cheese achsani has. I'm very honored to have my Teslan people, my Haa Koosteeyi people here with me today. You give me strength to be able to stand up here today. So, sheesh. Yekwati. Haa Koosteeyi. That's why I wanted Uncle to come up to speak. That's why I got Auntie to come up and pray. And that's where our healing is. That's where our healing has always been for our people. That in Canada, we had, and I think you had boarding schools down here too. Canada, we had residential schools that were run by the churches. They were funded by the government, but they were run by the churches. And their main goal was to kill the Indian in the child. So my mom was one of many, and we have many survivors here today, who was taken away from her family and from her community and taken away to these church-run residential schools. In these schools, my mother, that was her first language, was Tlingit. The first thing they did to her was punish her for speaking the only language that she knew. And in this school, she was taught that her ways were wrong, her ways were evil, her ways were of the devil, and her family was no good. So she had to put up with that for many, many years. And by the time she got back home, she was programmed so well that that's all she knew how to do. She didn't know how to love because she was shown no love in the school. And I think it's been said many times, and I know Auntie said it before, is that they weren't taught how to parent. All because they weren't parented themselves in these schools, they were supervised. So that's all they knew how to do when they got home. They didn't know how to parent. All they knew how was to supervise. And that's all my mom knew how to do when she came back home, is that she just knew what was brainwashed into her head. So she was taught to obey so well in these schools that she found a man, my father, who would continue that control in her life. And it was an abusive relationship that she had, but she suffered physical abuse in residential school, so that's all she knew. So I guess she thought that was normal. And so she accepted. She accepted all that she went through with my father, because that's what she was taught to do. And the pain became too much for her. And the only way that she knew how to deal with it was to turn to that alcohol, turn to that bottle to try to drown away that pain. And so I grew up my life. My father was in the house, but he wasn't there, so I basically grew up without a father because he wasn't there emotionally himself. But then I lost my mom too to that bottle. So I basically grew up all by myself, even though my parents were both in the house. So that us children of the survivors, we carry around much pain and much heaviness and much anger that a lot of us, we don't know how to deal with because we were never taught. So I carried that around in my life for many, many years, hurting myself, hurting others. So that there came a time in my life where I was blessed to raise two of my family members. They're not biologically my kids, but they're my kids. But I didn't know how to parent. So I repeated all the mistakes that my mom repeated with me, because I didn't know any better. But there comes a time in our life, and I think that's what Haa Koosteeyi teaches us, that we take ownership of our actions. And we talk about things, and we talk about things in a good way. So my mom and I, we started talking about things in a good way. Too many times, the only times that our people seem to talk about stuff that's hard is when we're really drunk and it comes out in a bad way, because they don't know how to bring it out in a good way. But I'm lucky with my mom and with my family. Grandma Carrie Jackson, one of her granddaughters, is here today. Sharon Shorty. She helped us out much. Tsint, yedu sagun tlingit kanach. My mom's family, they still held on to Haa Koosteeyi. They wouldn't let the churches beat it out of them. So we had that seed of healing that was still in there, and my mom started turning into it more and more. Where my mom got to the point in her life that she was able to talk about all she had survived in residential school. But it just didn't end there. Because my mom, she needed to hear from me too, all that she put me through. But I was able to take that example that she set for me, and I was able to talk to her in a good way, because she's my mother. To be honest with her, but to still be respectful with her. And to tell her what was in my heart. And she was able to listen to it and take it in. And I was so lucky that I have such a strong mother, that she was able to sit there and be honest with me and to listen to me be honest with her. And she had that strength to be able to say, I'm sorry. And that gave me the strength to go to my kids and tell them, this is what I went through. This is what I put you through. I'm sorry. And I see them with their kids. They're doing a way better job than I did with them, and then my mom did with me. So this domino effect of suffering and abuse that was started in residential school, that was passed down to my mom, and she passed it down to me, and I passed down to my kids. Well, we've taken that back, and we've begun that domino of healing. My mom, what she started, she passed it out, that gift down to me, and I passed that gift down to my kids, and they're passing that gift down to their kids. So that's what Haa Koosteeyi does. It brings closure, it brings healing. It's our way. We don't need to be listening to outside ways and beliefs. We have everything we need that's been given to us by Dikian Kau through Raven. It's just having to remember that once again. And we're remembering it. And we see it in these generations that are healing. And that's why I hold my hands up to all of you here today, because you're playing a part in this as well, because this message of healing needs to be brought back to our communities. It's so easy to get stuck in the pain, to get stuck in that victim mode. But there comes a time that we need to start taking ownership for our actions and to make amends for our actions and do it in our way and do it in a good way so that we can start spreading that healing to all our people and to all the generations coming after us. So that's why my mom and I did this documentary. So it was part of our healing journey, but so that we could share that story with all our people, just to help get our people thinking. That if you all of us have people we need to say things to, and we need to say things to in a good way. So if this gets you thinking that maybe you should be talking to whoever you need to talk to, and I always say in a good way, then my mom and I would be happy because we would know that our story has helped at least one person. So I'm just going to show the video right now. It's 32 minutes. I also want to honor the daughter of my uncle, Joe Bob. His daughter is here today, Claudia. My uncle too was a survivor of lower post, but he recently passed away last year. And that, my uncle, was one of the main reasons why my mom decided that yes, we have to do this. We have to take this journey together so that we can help our people. And so I remember my uncle today. I know he's here with us. And I know all those who've gone before us are here with us, and they're here to help us heal of the pain. Actually, I think uncle was always a trickster. He was a wolf, but I think he was a wolf with a few black feathers on him. He was a little bit of a trickster, so I think this is uncle. So he's here with us. But I want to sing our Yanyedi honoring song, our Yanyedi love song for our children. To honor my uncle Jimmy is a Yanyedi Yadi. To honor Claudia, who is a child of Yanyedi as well. So if my Yanyedi can come stand with me, I want to sing that song, and if you two can stand up. I want to honor the Yanyedi Yadi. And if there's any other Yanyedi Yadi that are here, I don't want to forget anyone. Any Yanyedi Yadi? Mary Anderson? And if you want to come stand up here with us, we're going to sing for our children. We have my grandmother Martha, we have my Auntie Aggie, we have Mary Anderson, we're the Yanyedi from Dakka. And we're going to sing for our Yanyedi Yadi. Yanyedi Yatki. Haa Koosteeyi Ashonachi Na Yechet Ashtochteinuku Yanyedi Yatchiku Ausa Ach Tu Chastu Ya Ishikinich Haa Koosteeyi Ashonachich Now Yechet Ashtochteinuku Yanyedi Yatchiku Ausa Ach Tu Chastu Ya Ishikinich Haa Koosteeyi Ashonachich Now Yechet Ashtochteinuku Yanyedi Yatchiku Ausa Ach Tu Chastu Ya Ishikinich Haa Koosteeyi Ashonachich Now Yechet Ashtochteinuku Yanyedi Yatchiku Ausa Ach Tu Chastu Ya Ishikinich Gunafchish Yanyedi Yadi Ifsichan
Mr. Speaker, I stand before you today to offer an apology to former students of Indian residential schools. The treatment of children in Indian residential schools is a sad chapter in our history. We now recognize that far too often these institutions gave rise to abuse or neglect and were inadequately controlled, and we apologize for failing to protect you. Not only did you suffer these abuses as children, but as you became parents, you were powerless to protect your own children from suffering the same experience. And for this, we are sorry.
Well, here I go again, making another scene. I can't remember what my hissy fit was about this time. Maybe I was mad at the doctor for taking too long to deliver me. Or maybe I didn't like being born in a pink hospital. Or perhaps I was afraid to begin this new life. But here I was, a newborn half-breed, a two-spirited Tlingit. But hold on. That comes later. I spent most of my life not knowing any of this. I had no idea who I was. I was no one, and I lived as such. I knew of no other way to live, and there I remained in my own void. But I grew tired of my night and wanted to see my life for what it was meant to be. Just existing was not enough. I had no idea where to start looking. And then I heard about residential schools. I knew that my mother went to one, but I thought, what does that have to do with me? But the Kian Kau guided me back to where I started my journey. My mother held the key that would unlock my box of treasure. Lower Post is a Kaska community located just inside the British Columbia border where it meets the Yukon. For countless generations before the Alaska Highway, many different people stopped for trading. Maybe this was why it was chosen for an Indian residential school. But now, the peoples who came here were their children, who were kidnapped here against their will. It was here that my mother was interned for 5 years, snatched away from her mother and father by the federal government. So we just get out and we look at the school.
Which school?
To the right. This is the first time my mother and I have returned to Lower Post together. We're both scared. There are many ghosts here. I knew that I lived here, but I didn't know that I lived here for the first 2 friggin' years of my life. This is where they tried to kill the Tlingit in her. This is our healing journey. And we are trusting that Haa Koosteeyi, our Tlingit way, will protect us from what we discover. We inland Tlingit are descendants of our coastal Tlingit brothers and sisters. We settled into the Yukon from what is now southeast Alaska. During the 19th century, we came up the Taku River to Teslin. To survive, we hunted, fished, tanned hides, and worked together in small clan groups. A strong, close-knit community was essential to our social structure. But most of our Tlingit life changed when the Alaska Highway was built in 1942, and the new road made it easier for the Indian agent to find our children. I've been dreading this day in some ways, and also looking forward to it. I'm going to hear from my mother what happened to her in Lower Post, but I'm not really sure if I'm fully prepared for what she may tell me. No one talks much about the children born to those who went to Indian residential school. Are we affected too? Today, I'm about to find out. But wait, there's still another person missing from the story. My father, Cyril Aucoin, was born on the other side of the country in New Waterford, Nova Scotia. Back then, coal mining was the town's main employer, and religion was mostly served by the Roman Catholic Church. He came to the Lower Post Indian Residential School as the boys' dormitory supervisor in 1967. He must have been a fairly good guy, because it wasn't long before he and my mother caught each other's attention. She was part of the kitchen staff. Those were the best days she had with my father, and sadly, some of the last. Haa Koosteeyi, our Tlingit way, has the medicines that will cleanse and protect us. We smudge with sage to purify our spirits and to lift our prayers up to the spirit world. We sing our song so our voices will speak in a good way. The truth needs a safe place to be heard.
Haiti dashi, Haiti dashi, daki on kau, daki on kau. Gunafchish ho ho, Gunafchish ho ho, daki on kau, daki on kau. You want to look at this now?
Pictures capture the truth of the moment they are taken. That's why I put together this photo album, so that we can explore these truths together. Now, how old were you when they came for you for Lower Post?
8. I was 8 years old
Hmm.
in 1954.
How did they come?
They just, from what I can remember, they had those big trucks, like big cattle trucks. And we'd all stand in the back. We'd all be packed in there, in the back there, the back of that truck. That's what, from what I can remember.
Were you allowed to bring stuff?
To the
Yeah,
school.
to Lower Post.
Anything we brought was taken from us. When we first came there, we had they call it our home clothes. What we came with, that was taken from us, and we were given clothes from there.
I've heard all this before from other survivors of Indian residential school. The same suffering, the same abuse, and the same programming. But this is the first time I've heard this from Akli, which is Tlingit for mum, and it hurts me.
If they caught us speaking Tlingit, they'd either strap us or if there was anything like a movie.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter if the movie, if they were showing us, showing us the movie at 5 o'clock, we'd have to go to bed. But there was a lot of punishment there.
Haa Koosteeyi was programmed to obey, especially Tleka, white people. Her heart wanted to be loved, but her mind was set to be controlled. Then along came my dad.
He saw me working, and then after a few days he came and talked to me.
Mm.
And we started seeing each other.
How was he back then?
He was good back then.
Yeah.
You know, he was really good.
They courted, and a year later he proposed marriage, something the nuns at Lower Post never prepared her for. How was she to know what a good man was? Young and in love, she said yes.
You know, I don't know if you remember your Auntie Irma.
Mm.
She's the one that made that dress.
Oh. Didn't she tell you
She's
stuff about Dad?
German. It was after I got married
Yeah.
that she said that she saw one side of him before we got married. After we got married, she saw the other side of him, which she didn't like.
Haa Koosteeyi says Dad's treatment of her started to go downhill even before I came along. I was born while they both lived and worked at Lower Posts in 1969. She once told me how Dad slapped her on the head when she didn't change my diaper quick enough for him. It should have been a sign to her, but didn't the nuns also slap her? Wasn't this normal?
They used to pound into us any wrong we did. We were committing a sin, and we'd go to hell, and that our own beliefs was pagan.
Then my brother Bernie was born. The doctor injured his skull during delivery, causing water on the brain and giving him permanent brain damage. He spent his whole short life in the hospital. It was after this my father really became more controlling, angrier, and physically abusive towards Mum. He scared me.
You know, that's how I always felt with him, is the way he treated Bernie, the way he treated you, the way he treated me. It's like we were property.
Mm-hmm.
For him to decide to do with whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
Kind of like what they did to you in Lower Post. You were just cattle, the way he cattled you out to Lower Post.
Mm-hmm.
Dad ruled our lives so completely, he even controlled our emotions. Bernie died at the White Horse Hospital in 1974. I was too young to know what death meant. All I knew was that my little brother was gone. Mum was heartbroken, and Dad was too, but he demanded she suck it up. Grieving is part of our Tlingit way, but it wasn't part of his, and he wouldn't accept it under his roof.
Back then, your dad wouldn't let me mourn for him.
Mm.
He told me that I should be happy that he's suffering more and that he's gone, and I shouldn't cry for him.
So he wouldn't even let you cry?
No. I started to cry when I heard about him, but then he stopped me. And that was the end. That was it. And I didn't mourn for him until I went back into Thunder Bay. It was the time that I finally mourned for my son.
Yeah.
Mum found she was living in isolation. Dad dragged us from Lower Post to jobs at group home after group home. We traveled from one end of the country to the other. I was her only company, and for me, she was my whole world. Dad was always too busy or too tired for me, and besides, he wasn't the most pleasant person to be around anyway. Mum found a way to cope, and I got left behind.
Life wasn't getting any better for us.
Yeah.
It just seemed to be getting worse. And back then, I just didn't care. I didn't care.
And I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
It's because it was
Well, I relied completely on you because
Yeah.
I didn't have Dad.
Yeah.
Didn't have a father. And it would have been bad enough if he wasn't around, but he wasn't around emotionally. But when it was just always the constant anger.
Yeah. And
So
then,
when-
and then
when
after, well, like you say, you didn't have your dad, and then I turned to alcohol, and you didn't have me either.
Dad was the one who started Mom drinking, and then he beat her when she wouldn't stop. Once more, mixed messages were coming her way. Later, she would tell me that in residential school, kids were forced to go to confession. If they had nothing to confess, the nuns made up a sin for them. That school really set the tone for my home environment. My main memory in that house was one time after, like he was beating you up down in the master bedroom. And he wouldn't stop.
Yeah.
I was trying to get him to stop. And I remember that, I remember running to the kitchen, grabbing a big cast iron frying pan. And I ran down to the master bedroom, and if he was still beating you, I was going to kill him. I was how old, and I'm like, this is the only way I'm going to make it stop.
And what he told me was I deserved it because I drank. It wasn't until in 1982, I remember that day, I'll never forget that day. That was the day that you came and told me, Mom, what are you doing to yourself? What are you doing to me? Look what you're doing to yourself and me. And that was the day I decided that I was going to put it away for you. And that's the day I put, December 12th, 1982 was the day I put that bottle away and never to pick it up again.
Mum started crawling out of the darkness, but I was now deep into my own anger. I was mad at my parents for what they put me through. Now it was my turn. I lived the way I wanted to. I fell in love with the boy, partied like it was 1999, and ran away to the big city. I did everything I could to push their buttons. Oh, I put them through hell. But it was to give them a taste of their own medicine. Anger was my only friend. And I remember that one time that Dad told he didn't want Michael hanging out anymore. And Michael stayed over. Middle of the night, the door flies open and Dad's screaming at us, telling Michael to get out. And I snapped verbally at him, just telling him to fuck off. I had it with him. And that's the first beating I remember from him. And I remember I wouldn't shut up. I told him, hit me again, hit me like you hit Mom. And he wouldn't stop, and I wouldn't stop. I wouldn't shut up. In 1992, Mom and I left Dad and started a new life in Teslin. I became a parent raising two young relatives, Ray and Scott. I naively believed I would never put my kids through what I suffered. But my own private lower post followed me, and my own family too. And I think that's a big, I see a lot of mistakes I've made raising them, and I would go from one extreme to I'd become like Dad. I'd go one extreme to being too hard on them. Then I went to another extreme of just not being in their life, sort of thing. I remember Scott once giving me a hard time. It was just like, give us rules. Because I didn't know how to parent. It's the same thing. You didn't know how to parent from residential school. I didn't know how to parent. So I was flopping all over the place. And then I become too self-focused on my own journey. I became self-absorbed in my own path, my own journey, that I forgot about them for a long time. Sure, I put a roof over their head and fed their stomachs and stuff, but I was like I wasn't there emotionally.
Yeah, and it hurts because I think that's what hurts every parent is that when they become what they fear the most.
Mm-hmm.
And it's partly for them too why I do this.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the more you talk about it, I talk about it, the more healing we all go through.
Yeah.
We'll be able to leave it behind us.
It's taken
And
us a
finally get on.
Yeah.
And we'll be free from it. We were free from Dad October 16th, 1992. But you know, today is the day that that our hearts are finally going to be free. So our whole self are going to be free. And I just tell you how much I love you. I know you weren't. I know you never did anything to hurt me. And it's not your fault what happened. I had so much anger towards you, even more than Dad, because you were my everything. But I know now, because I've gone through it myself as a parent, that I know that you love me, and I know Dad loves me too, and I forgive him. And I still love him in my own way. And I know you did your best with me. And I know I did my best with these kids. And I know they're going to do their best with their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me feel good. I can actually feel good about myself. And I couldn't have done it without you.
I couldn't have done it without you too. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I hurt you. But I thank you for being there for me too. So it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here today. With all the hurt and pain we went through together.
I love you.
I love you too.
In Teslin, I found what I didn't even know I was missing. Haa Koosteeyi. Our Tlingit way has taught me to deal with my baggage. We say Iguaya Juan, which means do your best. You will see one of our creation stories played out before you. The legend of Raven stealing the sun teaches me something new every time. Like Raven, I was tired of the darkness, and like Nashakan Kau, I didn't want to share my light. But in the end, the box is now open and everything is made clear. My hope is that Raven's light will shine down on you too. Shukwanach, Jes Kugamji Gate, Klil Gagan, Ka Klil Dis, Ka Klil Kusti Kutlanaha, Che Hiyak Tuj Yak Siti, Ye Kiji Yak. Ashwechlich witch, Taji Yede, we yesh. Khan Gagane, Teich Ultzin. Klelchega, Klachet, Nashakan Kau, Shede Hain du Shagun Ede. Du shawede ye sugenge. Du sik ko o klegenage. Ka du go hu. Du etchi isani nas koch tu ye yati. Kurkhanaha. Dis a kok klein awa klega se et atu ye yati gagan. Na shakan kau koku am sitin we yech a awa du tua segu. Na shakan kau kawe du shet tin tlach ega a silchanin as du sik klech a de klek ye yanach dudzi kaye ye. We du gochu chan du kench hin kach as du sik jeyis. We yech du jega wuti aga awe as. Tach al'i shwudle yech aga awe hin tin wududzi in. We has to seek klecha west in. We hin amdinayi. We as tach al'i in. Gushukyagi kaua kumziti dukanayi yach. Na shakan kau du dachchank kle chega I sechanan kle katet e jide ye adanean klach ega wudi chwet we yesh we du hish kogu da dek da kach yagi klein da dek da kach we yesh klach ega wude chwet we du hish aga awe we kut chana ha kugu as git awatan aga awe we yesh hede ashuatan we kuk kut chana ha atu dach kek kam du ken ke kam du ken we chats today na shakan kau du shawade ka du sik e yaschant uwanuk Wush has du kani aweye lade amdli sin dis daka kugu e dach a shuya watan we dis a du dach we de kain we du kohuch hede shutan nashakan kau kawuch jage ga ke ashchach klech awatlak thudakat ko ayach siti we kashan du dachchant kheyis khant Uwanuk we dis ka kukhanaha kutashawati we ye kiltuin wuti jaska gan ku awe du to wasagu na shakan kau ashji ayam klisik klach ega duje shagune ye yati just we gagag dakakok ash to wasagu du to wu gachlak e Klech dis anachua kadagach 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 Klech dukat has touch has uatak ade has wudi chwet ye Mayuk dia dujim klechish yuk daya shukshe aga awe gaganda kakok ach awe shat gande ajiwanak gagenach awe hede ashuatan we gagan gande ajiwunak kenachich aga awe at kamdigan gagan klech tekat at ayanach kamdigan de tuwu yak iye yan at sine iye telte kat we yesh na shakan kau yesh sitin masakuanuk kud awa ge at du tuwu yanik du kutkanaha kadu disi kadu dagagan Klach egadu tuwu yanik dudachkan ge kut awe ge aga awe dukat kamdiga wes ina gagan od anyench gage giden yak dudaya kush shushige
Haa for honoring me, for being here and listening to my story. Makes me feel good, adds to my healing path as well. Did you want to? My Auntie Emma wanted to come up and say a few words to you as well. She too is a survivor of residential school.
I just want to say thank you to Duane for showing this. And I am a survivor as well. What I wanted to say was there's a lot more things going on back home to help our people who are in trouble like this with the residential schools. Quite a while ago, I found that I found a healing path, and I've been on this path for a long time. And because I know that other people that are going through this don't have anybody to talk to, nobody to understand them. And a lot of those are in the justice, like I work with the justice system. And I find that the people who are in trouble with the law wind up in jail, and some of them have, most of them are the ones that have been in residential school. And some of them are the children of the mothers and fathers who were in residential school. And coming to this conference, to Juneau, and going through this conference, I just want to say it's important that when we come here to learn about our traditional ways, not to ever forget that we should have something to do with the justice system as well, so that we can start opening up our young people, the children of the residential school children. We have to, we are already starting this in Whitehorse. Working with the justice system, I have been giving courses to the guards who work in the corrections, and teaching them about our culture and about the things that we have forgotten while we were in residential school. We never did forget it. We were forced to forget it. I left my home when I was only 4, when they took me from my mom. There was no highway at the time. They flew us by plane over to Carcross. And because my mother didn't have money to pay for our way back, they left us there. I didn't go home until I was 7. And by that time, I was forced and punished for using my language, that I sort of locked it up inside of me. And I didn't start speaking my language again until not too long ago. I started learning. But my grandmother said when we came home, this is what you are born with. And so what I really suggest to the young people is that when you are, grandmother used to say, from the time of conception, that's when you start talking to your child while they are in your tummy, in your womb. Speak to them in your language, teach them, because they can hear you. And non-First Nations people say, they call it a fetus. First Nations people call it little spirits. everybody has a little spirit, and that's what grows in the tummy with the mother. And it can hear the mother. And if a mother is angry, the child gets angry too, in the womb. This is the way my grandmother taught us. And I learned that later on in years. I didn't learn that when I was too young. I was only 4. And I think this is what I want to bring out. We have to start talking to our children about talking to their child while they're still carrying their children. And I want to say to Duane, thank you for showing this. And you know, I listen to people talk Tlingit, and I think this is the best Tlingit I've ever heard with a French accent. Okay, thank you for listening to me. Sheesh.
Just wait right here. I just wanted to say that that little girl, that old-time picture that was in the front, we put that, it's a picture from Teslin from Canada Day many, many years ago. I won't say how many because I'll age her, but but I didn't know who that little girl was. And then when we did the Whitehorse premiere, Auntie was sitting in front of us and she saw that picture and she's like, "That's me!" So we found out, so it was Auntie. So I actually wanted to give you a copy of the movie. Also would invite my Uncle Jimmy and my Auntie Aggie. They also helped out with the production, so I'd like to invite them up. They helped out with the translation for the raven stealing the sun. And I wanted to follow proper protocol. Jimmy's our Raven clan leader in Teslin. And so I went to him to talk to him about getting permission to use this story. And he was like, I want to hear it first. And so I started sweating, thinking, oh, here it comes. And then I told him the whole story in English, and he was just sitting there and just quiet, and just making me sweat some more. And then he was like, that's exactly how I remember it as a little boy. So that just proved to me, I know it's sad when we lose our elders, but I'm not a believer in that when people say, oh, they take it with them, everything they know. Because what they know doesn't belong to them. It's still out there. And it comes back to us in our dreams. We have to listen to it in our hearts. It comes back to us when the old-timers return to us. And so that's why this story came back the way it did. And all our stories and all our songs are still out there. And we just have to start listening to it and bringing it back. So I just wanted to thank Uncle and thank Auntie. They helped me with the translation for this. Because I wanted to do it in our own language. This is the first time that it was ever, this story has been done in a long time with a full Tlingit cast. And I also like to invite Sharon up. She is one of our ravens. She's taking pictures, but after she takes a picture, she can come up. And so the first time this story was done by a full Tlingit cast with a full Tlingit crew. The story was adapted by Tlingits, it was translated by Tlingits, it was filmed in Tlingit territory, and we even the clans were the proper clans. I'm Wolf, and then Sharon, and the other one was Ray Mumberket, which is the granddaughter of Emma and the niece of Jackie and Elaine. She's also Raven. And so I think this was the first time in a long time that this was done like that. And this story is healing. When we look at the story, that every time I hear this story, there's new things I learn from it. This was the first time I ever looked at the story and saw Nashakan Kau as a parent and as a grandparent. And even he too made mistakes with his kids. But he realized in the end where his heart lies and where his heart should lie. And so that story teaches us that it's okay to make mistakes. We just have to take ownership of it and stand up to it and learn from it and move on. So I also wanted to give Auntie and Uncle a copy of the movie. Sharon already has a copy. And sheesh. Did you want to say anything? Did you want to say anything?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I just wanted to thank Duane for showing us this. At the time when he come to me up at Tesla, well, I never thought I was going to see that show out here in Juneau. But, well, when he come to me, he asked me, say if it's okay to put this, to make that. So I asked him, say what he know how the story goes. So I told him, I want to hear what you're going to tell this. So I'll listen. And I heard the story ever since I was a little boy then, not too old. But so when he told me about it, and I said, well, go ahead, I told him. And that he did, in which he did a very good job making it and telling it just the way it was. And to me, Crow, he's my uncle. So me, just call it down. And that much I can thank Duane for making this, and for all of you that seen it and listened, and all the people from Teslin here. There's some different widers now. So thank you, everybody. When it's cheese, to cut you on.
Sheesh. Sheesh.
I'd like to also thank Duane Gastant. We've been good friends for a long time, distantly related. It was a pleasure to work on this All Tlingit production, and to also to give a voice to those of us, many of us who are the second generation survivors. There was recently in Canada a big apology, as you saw in the film. There was also financial compensation for survivors, and rightly so. For myself, as a second generation survivor, my father didn't make it, and if you just feel like a bit left out, that we're suffering currently, and there was no compensation for us. I'm not bitter about that at all. I would just like to know that people realize that these impacts are still going on. Also, I wanted to let you know too that Duane has put all of himself into this documentary, into this important story. He didn't get almost no funding at all, so that he did this just on his own. And like for myself as a performer, sometimes you just had to step up and just do it for Auntie Aggie's cooking, basically, and gas money. And I was very happy to do that, because you'd be lucky if you had Auntie Aggie's cooking. So just want to let you guys know that. So he's not in the community. People might wonder if he's making a whole bunch of money off of this. No, he's not. That's not what he's doing it for, is to give a voice to all of us who've suffered from residential school, and but are now choosing to no longer be victims of that and continue to laugh and to move on in our life. So I'm proud of you, Duane. I think you did your best, and that's the way you've been trained, and I appreciate all the protocol that you teach me as well. Sheesh.
And sheesh, I just wanted to call, because this movie was dedicated to, one of the people it was dedicated to was uncle. I'd like to call his daughter up for a presentation. This is his daughter Claudia Bob. This is my Auntie Aggie, so it would have been her younger brother as well. I'd like to give you a copy of the movie for you. One of my many shorty Coqueton sisters. Here's another one.
Hi. I'm up here not for something really, really serious. I just wanted to invite everyone to wish Auntie Aggie a happy birthday, and can we sing happy birthday to her? Duane's going to drum and lead us. Happy birthday. Oh, before you come here. I want to show you how we kiss in Tlingit inland style. That's what we do. We touch noses and sniff.
We're going to set up a snicking booth later. $5 a snick.
Yeah. $10 for me. All right. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Aggie. Happy birthday to you. Yay! I think she's turning 50 today.
Gwn tîst llygad ach dwi yw sydini, gwn tîst gastant ffilm chigwan o sydin. Gwysio ach tu go ag llygad Hotini Shikonach. Ach du eidet Hositini. Kagunchish itla adidi she. I'd just like to say thank you to everybody. I'm a fluent Tlingit speaker, but I'm kind of nervous right now, so I'm getting mixed up. I'd just like to say thank you to Duane. It's the first time I've seen the film. I don't know, I was kind of afraid to see it before because I'm a survivor of residential school also. And I'd like to thank him and his mom, that's my younger sister, for doing the film because it probably helped other people too. And I'd like to say thank you for singing me the song. First time in Juneau. They sing me happy birthday. Gonna cheese.
So to end on another happy note, I'd like to invite all the Dak Kakwan who are here. I want to sing our inland Tlingit song for our coastal family down here, so if you can come up. Grandma Rosie, she's Ishkitan. We have a Ishkitan here. My great-grandfather's people, Rosie Johnson, she taught me this song, that when our people moved inland from the Taku, we had to kind of change the way that we live just because it's a different lifestyle in the Yukon. There's not too many moose swimming around in the ocean down here, so we had to kind of adapt our lifestyle. It's a lot colder, a lot drier, but some of our people down here on the coast, they started saying that we're Gunana now, we're no longer Tlingit. So this song was to remind them and to remind us that no matter where we are, we're still Tlingit. And so this is the De Gunana, which is, I guess you could say, the Thank God I'm Tlingit song. So. De Gunana. Gunalchish, Dakaka, Kwan, Shigetiwan, Gunalchish, Shigetiwan, Iguaya, Juan, Tsuye Ikwasatin. Thank you very much. You make us feel good coming home down here. So now we invite you to our home up in Teslin, July 22nd to the 28th. We're having our first inland Tlingit celebration. And we're always coming down here to visit you, so we thought we'd extend you that same invitation to come up and visit us to our home. We'd be honored to have our coastal family come and visit us and celebrate our common Tlingit culture. So, Gunalchish, Iguajuan, Tsiye Kwasatin. Gunalchish. There's lots of moose. You can come and eat. So.